Father's Day was supposed to be just another day. But this year, my daughter sent me a box. A box that would change everything I thought I knew about family, love, and forgiveness. Inside were memories, secrets, and a message that would take me on an emotional journey I never expected. Stay with me as I share the story of how one small gift opened the door to healing, hope, and a second chance with my daughter. Father's Day had always been a quiet affair for me. Since Margaret, my late wife, passed away 5 years ago, the house had grown colder, quieter, lonelier. My daughter, Lily, lived 2 states away, busy with her career, her family, and her life. We spoke on the phone occasionally, polite exchanges that never seemed to scratch beneath the surface. But this year, Father's Day began differently. The morning sun spilled through the half-drawn curtains, warming the old wooden floors. I shuffled to the front porch to fetch the newspaper, and there it was, sitting neatly on the steps, a package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. My name was scrawled across the top in Lily's familiar handwriting. I paused, my heart catching in my throat. She had never sent me anything on Father's Day before. Cards yet? Quick phone calls, yes. But a box? I bent down slowly, my joints protesting, and lifted it into my arms. It wasn't heavy, but it carried weight nonetheless, the kind that presses on the heart with memories and questions. Inside, back at the kitchen table, I studied it carefully. The tape was neatly placed, as though she had taken her time. My hands trembled slightly as I tore it open. Inside, I found tissue paper, carefully folded around the contents. One by one, I pulled them out. A small, faded photograph of Lily and me at the park, she no more than 5 years old, holding an ice cream cone that melted down her fingers. A pressed daisy, its petals yellowed but intact. A silver watch I thought I'd lost years ago. Margaret had given it to me on our 10th anniversary. And finally, a sealed envelope with a letter inside. My breath caught. I sat back in my chair, staring at the collection. Each item was a fragment of my life, my memories, pieces of me I thought had been forgotten. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. The paper smelled faintly of her perfume, the one she had worn since college. Dear Dad, I know I don't say this enough, but I remember. I remember everything. The way you held my hand when I was afraid, the way you stayed up all night helping me finish my school projects, the way you made pancakes shaped like hearts after Mom died because you didn't know what else to do but wanted me to smile. I remember you giving up things so I could have more. And I remember the times I wasn't kind to you, the times I pushed you away. I've carried that guilt with me, Dad. This box is not just a gift. It's a reminder. These pieces are from the past, yes, but they're also pieces of us. And I want to tell you something important. But first, I need you to look at these things and really remember. Think about them, about what they mean, and about what you've meant to me all these years. Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you more than I can ever say. Love always. Lily. My hands shook as I finished reading. I leaned back in my chair, the letter resting gently in my lap. My throat tightened, and I swallowed hard against the wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. The photograph, the daisy, the watch, the letter, each carried with it a piece of the past, a reminder of who I was, not just to myself, but to her. Suddenly, I wasn't just an old man sitting in a quiet kitchen. I was the father who had carried her on his shoulders, the husband who had once danced with his wife under the stars, the man who had fought through grief and kept going because his daughter needed him. But the letter left me with questions too. Why this sudden flood of memories? What did she mean when she wrote, "I want to tell you something important"? I placed the items gently back into the box, my fingers lingering on the photograph. A younger me, a laughing little girl, a sunny day long gone. For the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me, a mixture of hope, fear, and longing. I stood up, carried the box to the living room, and placed it carefully on the coffee table. Then I sat back in my recliner, staring at it as though it held the answers to all the questions I had buried deep within. And maybe it did. For the rest of the day, I couldn't bring myself to move far from it. I made myself a cup of coffee, turned on the old radio, and sat nearby, glancing at it every few minutes. Like it was alive, like it was waiting for me. That night, when I went to bed, I carried the letter with me. I read it again and again until the words blurred together and my eyes grew heavy. And before sleep claimed me, I whispered into the dark room, as though she could hear me across the miles. I remember too, Lily. I remember everything. The morning after I received the box, I woke earlier than usual. My nights had grown long and restless over the years, but this time I hadn't fought against sleep. Instead, I surrendered to it with Lily's letter tucked under my pillow. Somehow, knowing her words were close made the house feel less empty. I brewed my usual pot of coffee, the rich aroma filling the kitchen. But today, instead of staring absently out the window while sipping from my chipped mug, my eyes kept drifting to the coffee table where the box rested. Its presence was magnetic, pulling me back to it as though I might discover something new simply by being near it. Finally, I gave in. I pulled the box toward me and unfolded the letter again. The paper was soft, creased from the way I had held it tight the night before. I smoothed it gently against the table and began to read once more. This time, I let the words sink deeper. Dear Dad, I remember everything. I whispered those lines aloud, my voice cracking. For years, I had wondered if Lily remembered the little things, the sacrifices, the moments I thought might have slipped from her memory as she grew older and busier with her life. To know she carried them with her even now, it felt like balm on an old wound I had learned to live with. But there was more to the letter. A sense of urgency beneath her careful words, as though she was preparing me for something. This box is not just a gift. It's a reminder. I want to tell you something important. What did she mean by that? Important how? My mind swirled with possibilities. Was she ill? Was something wrong with her marriage? Or was this simply her way of reconnecting after years of distance? I read it again and again until the words began to take on new shapes, new meanings. Each reading revealed something I hadn't noticed before. The way she spoke of guilt, of carrying the burden of unkind moments. I remembered them too. The teenage years when she slammed doors, called me old-fashioned, accused me of not understanding her. The long silences when she went off to college. And later, the bitterness that sometimes lingered when she called from afar, distracted and impatient. But all of that had been swept away in these words. She remembered the good. She remembered me not as the man she had clashed with, but as the father who had stayed, who had given. I set the letter down and reached for the photograph again, the one of us in the park. I traced the outline of her tiny face, her cheeks sticky with ice cream, her smile wide and unburdened by the world. I remembered that day clearly. Margaret had insisted on a picnic. I'd been tired from work, reluctant to go, but she had persuaded me. And it turned into one of the happiest days I could recall. Lily had laughed for hours as I chased her across the grass. Margaret had sat on the blanket, her camera snapping moments that had become treasures. I had forgotten that watch was missing. I thought it had slipped from my wrist years ago during one of those hurried mornings. Yet here it was, gleaming faintly in the light. Margaret's gift. How had Lily found it? Had she kept it all these years? Each piece in the box spoke to a story, and each story was a thread leading me back to a tapestry I had nearly forgotten. The life we had built, the love we had shared, the memories that stitched us together. Still, the words, "I want to tell you something important," echoed like a drumbeat. I found myself checking the phone several times that day, expecting it to ring, expecting her to call and reveal the meaning behind her gift. But the silence stretched on, interrupted only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog. By evening, the weight of unanswered questions pressed on me so heavily that I sat down at my desk, pulled out a sheet of paper, and began to write back. "Dear Lily, your letter caught me by surprise, but it filled my heart in ways you may not understand. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for carrying those pieces of me with you. They mean more than I can put into words. I want you to know that I remember too. I remember your first steps, your first bike ride, your first heartbreak. I remember the way your eyes lit up whenever I told you a bedtime story. I remember the long drives to visit colleges, the heavy silence when we argued, and the even heavier silence when you left home. But above all, I remember loving you more than anything else in this world. You mentioned something important. Whatever it is, please don't be afraid to share it with me. I'm here, Lily." Boys. When I finished, I sat staring at the words, wondering if they were enough. Then I carefully folded the paper, slipped it into an envelope, and addressed it. I would mail it tomorrow. But that night, as I lay in bed, something stirred within me. For the first time in years, I felt anticipation. Not dread, not routine, but genuine anticipation. Like I was standing on the edge of a story not yet told. The next morning, before I could even mail the letter, the phone rang. I jumped slightly at the sound, my heart thudding. I reached for it, breath caught in my throat. "Dad." Her voice was soft, hesitant, but unmistakably hers. "Lily," I said, my throat dry. "I was just writing to you." She laughed lightly, though it was tinged with something else. Nervousness, maybe even sadness. I figured I should call instead. "Did you get the box?" "Yes," I whispered. "I got it. And your letter." "Lily, I'm glad," she interrupted. "Because there's more I need to tell you, Dad. Something I couldn't put in writing." Her words sank into me like stones dropped into still water, sending ripples of fear and curiosity through me. I gripped the phone tighter. "What is it, Lily?" I asked. There was silence on the line for a moment, just the faint sound of her breathing. Then she said, "I'm coming to see you, Dad. This weekend. I need to tell you everything in person." My heart surged. She hadn't visited in years. "I'll be here," I managed, my voice trembling with relief and dread all at once. When we hung up, I sank into my chair, staring again at the box. The items were no longer just mementos, they were clues. Clues to whatever truth Lily was carrying, whatever secret she felt she had to share. And as the house grew quiet again, I realized the letter was only the beginning. The days between Lily's phone call and her visit stretched like an eternity. I tried to busy myself with the small routines of life, watering the plants, sweeping the porch, tinkering with the old radio, but my mind was always elsewhere. What could be so important that she couldn't write it in her letter? Why did she sound so nervous? I told myself not to worry, but worry had been my shadow for years, especially where Lily was concerned. By Friday morning, I was a bundle of nerves. I dusted the living room twice, straightened the old photographs on the wall, and even baked an apple pie, though I hadn't baked in years. The house smelled of cinnamon and sugar, and for the first time in a long while, it felt alive. When the knock finally came, my heart leapt. I opened the door to find her standing there, my daughter, my Lily. She was older now, of course. 35 years had carved lines of experience into her face, but she was still my little girl. Her eyes, the same deep brown as her mother's, glistened with a mixture of excitement and something else I couldn't place. "Dad?" she said softly. Lily. My voice cracked as I pulled her into my arms. I hadn't realized how badly I'd needed this until that moment. Her embrace was warm, familiar, and for the first time in years, the house felt complete. She stepped inside, glancing around as though taking in the memories that clung to every corner. "It hasn't changed much," she said, smiling faintly. "No," I admitted. "I suppose I haven't had much reason to change it." We sat down in the living room, the box still on the coffee table between us. Her eyes flickered to it, then back to me. "You opened it all?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "The photo, the daisy, the watch, and the letter." I paused, searching her face. "You said there was more." Her expression grew serious. She leaned back, folding her hands in her lap, as if gathering courage. "There is. But before I tell you, I wanted to see you. I wanted to make sure I could look you in the eye." My chest tightened. "Lily, whatever it is, you can tell me. I'm your father." She nodded, biting her lip. For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out another envelope. She handed it to me with trembling fingers. I opened it carefully. Inside was a medical report. My eyes scanned the words, though they blurred together at first. And then I saw it: diagnosis, early-stage lymphoma. I froze, the paper slipping slightly in my hand. "Lily, I didn't want to tell you over the phone," she whispered. "I didn't want to scare you. But I couldn't keep it from you anymore. The box, it was my way of preparing you, of reminding us both of what we've shared, what we've survived together." My throat closed up. "How long have you known?" 3 months, she admitted. "The doctors say it's early, and the treatment has a good chance of working. But it's still cancer, Dad." The word hung in the air like a storm cloud. I reached across the table and took her hands in mine. "You should have told me sooner." "I know," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I was scared. I didn't want to burden you. You've already lost Mom, and I thought—" I shook my head fiercely. "Don't you dare think that way. You are my daughter, Lily. There is no burden too heavy when it comes to you." She broke then, leaning into me, her shoulders shaking as she cried. I held her, stroking her hair the way I had when she was a little girl afraid of thunderstorms. My own tears fell freely, soaking into her hair, but I didn't care. We stayed like that for a long time until she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes. "There's more, Dad. I didn't just come to tell you. I came to ask you something." "What is it?" She hesitated, then said, "I want to stay here for a while. During the treatments. I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't want to go through this alone. And I want my daughter, Emily, to know you better. She's only 7, and she deserves to spend time with her grandfather." A wave of emotions washed over me: fear, sadness, but also a strange, unexpected joy. "Of course," I said without hesitation. "This is your home, Lily. Always has been. Always will be." Her relief was visible, her shoulders slumping as though a weight had been lifted. "Thank you, Dad." That evening, we cooked dinner together, just like old times. She chopped vegetables while I stirred the pot, and we laughed about how bad we both were in the kitchen without Margaret to guide us. For a little while, it felt almost normal, almost like the past had returned. After dinner, we sat in the living room again. Lily picked up the photograph from the box, holding it gently. "I kept this all these years," she said softly. "Every time life got hard, I looked at it and remembered that I was loved. Even when I pushed you away." I swallowed hard. "I never stopped loving you, Lily. Not for a single second." She smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I know that now." The night stretched on, filled with stories and memories. We spoke of Margaret, of the silly things Lily did as a child, of the dreams she once had and the ones she still carried. And though the shadow of her illness loomed over us, there was also light, flickering, fragile, but real. When she finally went to bed in her old room, I stayed up, staring at the box once more. It no longer felt like just a gift. It was a bridge, connecting us across the years, across the distance, across the fear of what was to come. As I turned out the light, I whispered a prayer. For strength, for hope, for more time. Because now I knew the truth. This Father's Day gift wasn't just about remembering the past. It was about fighting for the future. The days after Lily's arrival felt both fragile and full. Having her under my roof again stirred something inside me I hadn't felt in years. A sense of purpose, of being needed. But it also came with an unspoken heaviness, the looming presence of her illness. Her daughter, Emily, arrived a few days later, bright-eyed and clutching a stuffed rabbit. When she saw me, she hesitated for only a moment before breaking into a smile. "Grandpa?" she asked, her voice small but filled with hope. "Yes, sweetheart," I said, kneeling to her level. She rushed into my arms, and I felt my heart crack open in the best way possible. I hadn't realized how much I missed the feeling of a child's hug, the way it filled a home with life. But alongside that warmth, reality set in. The treatments began. The first appointment. I went with Lily to her first chemotherapy session. The sterile smell of the clinic, the beeping machines, the quiet murmurs of other patients, it all pressed down on me like a weight. Lily tried to put on a brave face, joking about the ugly hospital chairs and rolling her eyes at the paperwork. But I could see the fear beneath her smile. When the nurse inserted the 4, Lily gripped my hand tightly. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm right here," I told her. "And I'm not going anywhere." I sat with her through the hours, watching as the medicine dripped slowly into her veins. Each drop felt like both a poison and a promise. Pain now, hope later. By the time we got home, she was exhausted. I tucked her into bed like I had when she was a child, brushing her hair back gently. Emily hovered nearby, confused and worried. I pulled her into my lap and explained as best as I could. "Your mommy is very brave," I said softly. "She's getting medicine to help her get better. It might make her tired, but she's fighting hard. And we're going to fight with her." Emily nodded solemnly, clutching her rabbit. "I'll be brave too." The days between. The weeks blurred into a rhythm. Appointments, treatments, long nights of nausea, mornings of fatigue. I became a caretaker again, though this time for my grown daughter instead of a toddler. I cooked simple meals, kept the house tidy, and tried to distract Emily with stories and games when the air grew heavy with worry. One evening, as I stood at the sink washing dishes, I overheard Emily whispering to her mother in the bedroom. "Mommy, are you going to die?" The silence that followed was unbearable. My chest ached as I strained to hear Lily's response. Finally, her soft voice floated through the door. "Not if I can help it, sweetheart. Not if Grandpa and I have anything to say about it." I leaned against the counter, my hands trembling. Fear was an unwelcome guest in this house, but so was love. They existed side by side, pushing against each other, shaping every day. Breaking point. One night, after a particularly rough treatment, Lily snapped at me. "Dad, stop hovering. I can walk to the bathroom by myself." Her voice was sharp, harsher than I'd heard in years. The words stung, but I bit my tongue. She was in pain, tired, vulnerable. I nodded quietly and stepped back. Later that night, I found her sitting on the edge of her bed, her face buried in her hands. I sat beside her without a word until she finally looked up, tears streaking her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I hate this. I hate being weak. I hate that you have to take care of me like I'm a child." I reached for her hand. "Lily, Do you remember when you broke your arm when you were 10? You cried because you couldn't tie your shoes, and you hated asking for help. But you let me do it for you anyway, and we laughed about how bad I was at tying bows. This is no different. You're still my little girl, and I'll help you tie your shoes, or fight cancer, if that's what it takes. She smiled faintly through her tears, leaning into me. You always know what to say. Emily's innocence. Emily became the quiet glue holding us together. She filled the house with drawings taped to the walls, pictures of her, her mom, and me holding hands under a bright sun. One day, she brought me a crayon-scribbled card. To Grandpa, it read in shaky letters with a big red heart. "What's this for?" I asked, smiling. "Because you're the bravest," she said simply. "You take care of Mommy. And you make the best pancakes." I laughed, my eyes stinging. Well, then I'd better keep making them, hadn't I? Her innocence was a shield, one that kept the shadows at bay even on the darkest days. A visit from the past. One afternoon, as Lily rested, I dug through an old chest in the attic, looking for something, anything, that might comfort her. I found Margaret's quilt, the one she had sewn by hand with tiny patches of fabric from Lily's baby clothes. I brought it downstairs and draped it over Lily as she slept. When she woke and saw it, she gasped softly. "Mom's quilt." "She'd want you to have it now," I said. Lily wrapped it around herself, tears glistening in her eyes. "I feel like she's here." And in that moment, so did I. The silent night. But not every night was filled with comfort. One evening, after putting Emily to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the box that had started it all. The photograph, the daisy, the watch, they seemed almost prophetic now, like Lily had known the storm was coming and wanted to anchor us to something solid. I picked up the watch, feeling its weight in my hand. Margaret's gift. Time had always felt like an enemy, stealing away the people I loved. But now, as I wound it carefully, I realized it was also a gift. Each tick was another second with Lily, another chance to stand beside her in this fight. I whispered into the silence, "Please, don't take her from me too." Strength in small moments. The struggle continued, long, weary days of medicine and short bursts of laughter that reminded us we were still alive. Emily learned to ride her bike in the driveway, and Lily insisted on sitting outside, wrapped in a blanket, to cheer her on. Her voice was weak, but her pride was strong. "That's it, Emily," she called, her face glowing as her daughter pedaled shakily down the pavement. "You're doing it." I watched them both, my heart aching and swelling all at once. The struggle was real, but so was the love that bound us through it. And as the sun set that evening, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I realized something. This battle wasn't just Lily's. It was ours. And as long as we faced it together, there was hope. The night after Lily stormed out of my house was the hardest one I had endured in years. The silence pressed down on me like a heavy weight, and though the old house creaked and sighed in its usual ways, I felt something missing, a warmth, a presence. For so long, my daughter had lived in my memories as a little girl clutching my hand, her eyes wide with trust. Now she was a grown woman, wounded, angry, and unsure of where her father stood in her world. I spent that night sitting by the window, staring at the moonlight spilling across the yard. The box she had sent me, the gift that had started this entire journey, sat unopened on the table. I had glanced inside before, but I hadn't really allowed myself to face what it meant. There was more than just trinkets and old keepsakes in there. There were years of silence, years of hurt, and years of love buried beneath resentment. At dawn, I made a decision. I wasn't going to lose her. Not again. Facing myself. The first step, I realized, wasn't about what Lily had done or said. It was about me. I had to confront myself, the choices I had made, and the walls I had built around my heart. I pulled the box closer and began going through it, item by item. A drawing she had made in kindergarten, me and her, stick figures with smiles, holding hands. A seashell from a family trip to the beach, sand still faintly lodged in the grooves. A birthday card I had signed hastily, the handwriting slanted, betraying the rushed nature of my life back then. And at the very bottom, folded carefully in tissue paper, was a photograph. It was Lily and me, sitting on the porch of our old house, a birthday cake between us. She must have been 8 or 9. My arm was around her shoulders, and she was laughing so freely that I could almost hear it through the picture. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped being that father, the one who held her close, who made her laugh. I had let work, mistakes, and pride push me away from the most important person in my life. It was time to change, seeking help. But change isn't simple. I knew I couldn't just show up at her door and expect forgiveness. I needed to understand how to bridge the gap between us. So, I swallowed my pride and reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Her mother, my ex-wife, Clara. When she picked up the phone, there was a long silence before she spoke. "Well," she said finally, her voice cautious, "this is unexpected." "I know," I admitted. "But I need your help. It's about Lily." There was another pause, softer this time. "She told me about the visit," Clara said. "She's confused. But she still loves you, Daniel. She wouldn't have sent that box if she didn't." Her words were both a relief and a knife to the heart. "I don't know how to fix this," I confessed. "Every time I try, I make it worse." Clara sighed. "You can't fix years in a single moment. You have to show her you're willing to put in the time. Be consistent. Be patient. And most of all, listen." Listening. That was something I had failed at for too long. Reaching out. Armed with Clara's advice, I decided to try again. A few days later, I wrote Lily a letter. Not an email, not a text. A real letter, the kind you have to take time with, the kind you can hold in your hands. In it, I told her the truth, my regrets, my failures, and my hope to rebuild. I didn't ask for her forgiveness outright. Instead, I asked for a chance to earn it. I ended the letter with a simple line. "You sent me a box that opened old wounds, but it also reminded me of the love we shared. I don't want to lose that again. Please, give me a chance to be part of your life, at your pace, in your way." I mailed it and waited. The unexpected call. A week passed before my phone rang. It was Lily. Her voice was cautious, but softer than it had been during our last conversation. "I got your letter," she said. I held my breath. "I don't know if I'm ready to let you back in completely. I also don't want to keep pushing you away. Can we try again?" Slowly. My heart swelled with relief. "Of course," I said quickly. "However you want. I'll follow your lead." She hesitated. "There's a charity event next weekend, something I'm organizing through work. Would you like to come? Just as my guest. Nothing more, nothing less." It wasn't much, but it was a start. "I'd be honored," I told her. The turning point. The night of the event, I arrived at the venue dressed in my best suit. I felt nervous, almost like I was going on a first date. When Lily saw me, she gave a small smile. Not the wide, carefree grin from our past, but a tentative one, like a door cracked open just enough to let in a sliver of light. Throughout the evening, I watched her work. She was confident, passionate, and full of purpose. I was proud, achingly proud. Every time she glanced my way, I made sure my eyes said what my words often failed to: "I'm here. I see you. I'm proud of you." When the event was over, she walked me to my car. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said quietly, "I want to believe you've changed." I want to believe this isn't temporary. It's not, I promised. I know I've said that before, but this time it's different. I don't just want to be in your life, Lily. I want to be the father you deserve. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She nodded, and for the first time in years, she hugged me. It wasn't the tight, effortless hug of a child. It was hesitant, careful, but it was real. And in that embrace, I felt the years of distance begin to melt away. A new path forward. Driving home that night, I knew this was just the beginning. There would be setbacks, doubts, and difficult conversations ahead. But something had shifted. The box she had sent me on Father's Day was no longer just a reminder of what I had lost. It had become a turning point, a chance to start over, to heal, and to rebuild the bond that had once meant everything to both of us. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. The weeks after the charity event felt like walking on fragile glass, each step uncertain, yet full of potential. Lily and I had agreed to try again, slowly, cautiously, like two people learning to speak a language they once knew but had forgotten. Every word, every glance carried weight. But even in that fragility, there was progress. For the first time in years, I wasn't an outsider peeking into my daughter's world. I was part of it, maybe only a small part for now, but it was enough to keep me going. Gentle steps. At first, our conversations were short and surface level. We talked about her work, about my quiet days at home, about the weather even. But gradually, something shifted. One evening, Lily called me just to ask how I was doing. The question caught me off guard. So simple, yet so monumental. "I'm doing well," I said, my voice warm. "Better, knowing you're in my life again." She hesitated. "I'm still scared. Scared you'll disappear again." I swallowed hard. "I don't blame you for feeling that way. But I'm not going anywhere this time. I promise." Promises are fragile things, especially after years of disappointment. But I meant it with every fiber of my being. Facing old wounds. Healing isn't about ignoring pain, it's about facing it. And soon enough, the deeper conversations began. One Saturday afternoon, Lily invited me over for coffee. We sat in her living room, the hum of the city outside the window. She held her mug tightly, her knuckles pale. "Why did you leave us the way you did?" she asked suddenly, her voice cracking. The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. I had rehearsed answers for years, but none of them seemed good enough now. "I thought I was doing what was best," I said slowly. "I buried myself in work to provide, but in doing so, I lost sight of what mattered most. I was selfish and I was scared of failing as a father. So I pulled away instead of fighting harder." Tears welled in her eyes. "Do you know how many birthdays you missed? How many nights I cried, wondering why my dad didn't want me around?" Her words sliced through me, but I didn't turn away. I let the truth of her pain wash over me. "I do now," I whispered. "And I hate myself for it. If I could go back and change it, I would. But all I can do is be here now. For every day forward." She was quiet for a long time. Then, almost imperceptibly, she reached across the table and touched my hand. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a step. Small rituals of connection. Over the following months, we built small rituals that became the scaffolding of our healing. Sunday breakfast together at the little diner near her apartment. Evening phone calls, even if only 5 minutes long. Shared walks in the park, sometimes silent, sometimes full of laughter. One afternoon, she surprised me by pulling out an old photo album. "I've been going through these," she said. "I thought maybe we could look at them together." We sat side by side on her couch, turning pages. There was the photo of her first day of school, her hand clutching mine tightly. The picture of us carving pumpkins, both of us smeared with orange pulp and grinning. The Christmas where the tree had tilted to one side, and we'd laughed until tears rolled down our faces. The memories were bittersweet, but they reminded us of something crucial. Beneath the years of distance, there had once been love. Real, undeniable love. Breaking through. The true breakthrough came unexpectedly. One night, Lily invited me to dinner with a few of her close friends. I worried I'd feel out of place, but she introduced me warmly. "This is my dad." Those words struck me harder than I expected. My dad. Not Daniel, not the man I'm trying to reconnect with. Just her dad. Throughout the evening, she included me in conversations, teased me affectionately, and even shared a story from her childhood that ended with both of us laughing until our sides hurt. For the first time in years, it felt like we were family again. When we walked back to her apartment, she said softly, "You were really great tonight. I think my friends liked you." "I liked them too," I said. "But more than that, I liked being by your side." Her smile was faint but real. The box again. One rainy afternoon, I returned home to find another package on my doorstep. My heart skipped a beat when I saw Lily's handwriting. Inside wasn't another collection of old mementos. Instead, there was a single object, the photograph I had stared at months ago, the one of us on the porch with the birthday cake. But this time, it was framed, polished, and ready to be displayed. There was a note attached. "Dad, I think it's time we make new memories. But I also want us to remember the good ones we had. Keep this where you can see it. Love, Lily." I held that frame to my chest and wept. Not tears of regret this time, but tears of hope. A step toward forgiveness. The healing wasn't complete. There were still scars, still moments where mistrust flared. But the distance between us was no longer a chasm, it was a bridge we were rebuilding one plank at a time. One evening as we walked together in the park, Lily stopped suddenly. "You know, Dad," she said, "I don't know if I've fully forgiven you yet, but I think I'm starting to." I squeezed her hand gently. That's all I could ever ask. Just the chance to keep proving myself to you. She nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I think we're going to be okay." And for the first time in years, I believed her. The light ahead. That night, as I sat by the window in my quiet house, I looked at the framed photo and smiled. The box she had sent me on Father's Day had been the start of something I never expected, a painful but necessary journey. Healing wasn't a single moment of forgiveness. It was 1,000 little choices, calls answered, conversations had, tears shed, laughter shared. And slowly, step by step, my daughter and I were choosing each other again. For the first time in a long time, the future felt bright. The summer was warm and gentle, with long days that stretched lazily into golden evenings. For the first time in what felt like forever, our home was filled with laughter, chatter, and the quiet hum of everyday life. Emily ran through the yard, her small feet kicking up grass as Lily and I watched from the porch. It was a scene that could have been ripped from a memory, yet it was real, and it belonged to us. The treatments had been grueling, but Lily was holding her own. Her resilience amazed me every day, but more than that, it was her spirit, the way she refused to let cancer define her, that rekindled the bond between us. A new tradition. Father's Day approached again, and this time, I felt a flutter of excitement rather than anxiety. Last year had been a shock, a storm I wasn't ready for. But this year, I knew what it meant, to celebrate life, love, and the bond we had fought to restore. Lily had been cryptic about the plans, simply saying, "You'll see, Dad." Emily had whispered to me the night before, "I made you a surprise too, Grandpa." Her grin was full of secrets, and I was delighted. That morning, I awoke to the aroma of pancakes, cinnamon, and something unmistakably homemade. Lily had prepared breakfast, setting the table with care, even folding little paper cranes as decorations. Emily handed me a hand-painted card, bright and cheerful. To Grandpa, it read, "You are the best. Love, Emily." Tears welled in my eyes. "Thank you, sweetheart," I whispered, hugging her tightly. The box returns. After breakfast, Lily handed me a small, familiar-looking box. My hands froze for a moment, an echo of last year's shock and wonder. But this time, the feeling was different. It wasn't anxiety or dread. It was love, anticipation, and trust. Inside the box were tokens of our journey over the past year. A tiny daisy pressed in wax, a photo of Lily and me at the charity event, a drawing Emily had made of the three of us holding hands. And at the bottom, a small envelope addressed to me. I opened it carefully, my heart pounding. Inside, Lily's neat handwriting read, "Dad, last year you received a box that reminded you of the past. This year, it's to celebrate the future. We've been through so much and I've learned that life is fragile, but love, our love, is stronger. Thank you for never giving up on me. Thank you for showing me that family is worth fighting for. Happy Father's Day. Love, Lily." I could feel the lump in my throat. The words were simple, yet they carried years of reconciliation, pain, and healing. Shared memories. We spent the day together, exploring old stories and creating new ones. Emily insisted we all go to the park and have a picnic, dragging a blanket and baskets filled with sandwiches and fruit. As we sat under the shade of a massive oak, I watched Lily interact with her daughter, and I was struck by the full circle of it all. Here was my little girl, no longer little, passing on love, care, and strength to the next generation. And here I was, standing at the center, part of it all again. We laughed as Emily chased a butterfly across the grass, Lily joining in with the kind of joy that had been missing for so long. For once, there were no fears, no shadows of illness looming. Just life, beautiful and fleeting, and the gift of togetherness. An unexpected conversation. Later that evening, as the sky turned orange and pink, Lily and I sat quietly on the porch, sipping tea. Silence stretched comfortably between us, a stark contrast to the tension of months past. "You know, Dad," she said softly, "I was scared, not just of the cancer, but of losing you again. Of realizing too late that life had passed us by while I waited for you to show up." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "I was scared too," I admitted. "Scared that it was too late to make things right. But we're here now. And we have time. Enough time to build something new." Her hand found mine, warm and steady. "I think we're doing that. Step by step, day by day. And I've learned something important. You don't have to be perfect to be a good father. You just have to be present." I squeezed her hand gently, smiling through the tears that had started to form. "I'll be present, Lily. Always." Emily's wisdom. Emily, ever the little philosopher, piped up from the porch swing. "Grandpa, can we plant flowers tomorrow? Mommy said it's a special day for us to remember happy things." I looked at Lily, who nodded. "It's a great idea. Let's do it." The three of us spent the next morning digging, planting, and laughing. Emily's small hands worked diligently, while Lily guided her with gentle patience. I joined in, feeling the warmth of soil and sun and love. Every flower we planted was a symbol, a promise that even after storms, life could bloom again. Reflections. That night, after Emily was asleep and Lily rested on the couch reading, I sat alone in my study, looking at the framed photo she had given me last year. The box had done its job twice now. It had reminded me of the past and celebrated the present. I realized that healing wasn't a single moment of reconciliation. It was the accumulation of countless gestures, conversations, and shared experiences. It was living in the moments, cherishing the small victories, and facing the challenges together. I picked up a pen and wrote a note to Lily, tucking it carefully into the box. Thank you for trusting me again. Thank you for letting me be your father. I promise to keep showing up, every day, in every small way that matters. We're in this together always. Full circle. Weeks passed, and life settled into a gentle rhythm. There were still hospital visits, small setbacks, and moments of fear, but they no longer defined us. Instead, they reminded us of the fragility of life and the power of love. On the anniversary of the first box, we sat together on the porch once more, watching Emily play in the yard. Lily leaned against me, her head on my shoulder. You know, she said quietly, I think this is the happiest Father's Day I've ever had. I kissed the top of her head, my eyes glistening. Mine too, Lily. Mine too. The box, once a symbol of distance and longing, had become a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring power of family. We had journeyed from fear and estrangement to love and connection, full circle. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the yard in golden light, I felt a deep sense of peace. Life was imperfect, unpredictable, and fleeting, but it was ours. And nothing could ever take that away. We had found each other again, and this time, we would never let go. Life is fragile, but love can be even stronger. A simple box reminded me of the past, but also guided me toward the future. A future filled with connection, laughter, and new memories. No matter the distance, no matter the pain, family has the power to heal, to forgive, and to embrace the moments that truly matter. Thank you for listening to this story. May it remind you to cherish the ones you love every single day.